Yeah, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. It's been a great day, ready to knock out a couple more things, and then tomorrow's another day. What about you?
That's
How's yours?
right. Good day today so far. Great day.
Great.
Uh,
I love it. I
um,
love the banner behind you, actually. That's great.
oh, thank you. It's my own homemade banner.
Oh, nice. I love it. Everything looks great. Very cool. Well, it looks like we're live on Facebook. Let me just confirm that we're live on the TV portion as well.
Okay, five
Give me one
minutes to
moment here.
start. So just setting that up.
Perfect. Cool. Well, it looks like we're live on Facebook too. So I'll go ahead
Excellent.
and let you go. And
Okay,
I make you
give me
host
back my
again.
host.
Yep, yep,
Yeah, don't
yep.
leave me hanging.
Very important. Yep.
Uh,
All right. Make host,
Excellent.
change
Have a
host.
great
You are.
day.
Thank you so much, Sue. Have a
Pleasure.
great day to you as well, and have a great
I
class.
will. Thank you so much. I'm sure
Take
we
care.
will.
Bye-bye now.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thanks.
All right. We will be going live shortly. It's about 5 minutes until live time. I'm looking forward to being your host and your guide and taking you through the animals of Australia. I will be starting in 4 minutes time. Hope to see you soon. Right. Welcome back to those who are watching on Facebook and on the channel, the Get Set Up channel. Today, we are going to be discussing some of the different animals that you can find in Australia. I won't be covering all the animals, only some of them, because I have two different groups of them. There are just too many of the most amazing animals to be found in Australia. So let's see, it is 2 minutes to, and we will be starting in the next 2 minutes. It is a beautiful day in Perth, Australia. It's not quite so hot as it has been, so it is a pleasant day today. We've had some really hot weather, but now it is cooling down for the last 2 days, and that makes such a difference to be able to sit in a slight coolness in comparison to 40 degrees, which is your 104. So it's pretty hot. Today we are much lower than that. We've dropped by a good 10, 15 degrees, and it is a pleasant day here. Our timing is coming up to 10 o'clock Australian time, or Western Australian time, and I should have about 10 or more participants in class today, watching the different things that we're going to be doing. There we go. People are starting to arrive. All right. Hello, Veronica. Hi, Anne. Nice to have you both in class. Lovely to see you. Veronica, where are you from? And Anne, where are you from?
I'm from Philadelphia area, about 40 miles west of Philly.
Okay, so is it getting warmer for you now?
We've had some beautiful days in the 60s. Yeah.
Ah, beautiful. Well, we had 104 for 2 days recently, so it's been very
Oh
hot.
my gosh.
It's much cooler today. We're down to probably your 60s now. It makes a big difference.
That's better. Yeah.
Definitely. Hi, Melissa. How are you? Lovely to have you in class, and Veronica and Joanne. Lovely to have everybody coming into class. I'm hoping that you are going to be able to enjoy learning about the different Australian animals. Joanne, where are you from? If you want,
Texas.
Texas. Oh, lovely. And Melissa, I'm trying to remember where you're from. Missouri? No. Michigan. Are you from Michigan, Melissa? Okay, and Veronica as well. Lovely. We've got quite a few more that should be coming into class. But what I suggest is that we start anyway with my screen share. And then as they come in, they can just join us wherever we are. So let's do a screen share. Oops, I've got one problem with my screen share is I was at the end of my presentation, not at the beginning of the presentation. So let me just go to the beginning of the presentation. There we go. That looks much better than it was just a minute or so ago. Right. We are going to be we are already live streaming. I just want to make sure we are, for some reason, we are not, let me just go out and press there, connecting to the cloud so that I can make a recording of it for you. There we go. We're back in. Right. Now, let's share screen again. Let's hop back to where we were. There we go. Right. We are up and running. So today we are going to learn about some of the Australian wildlife. I only moved to Australia 3 years ago. I lived in South Africa and I had a lot of time in the bush with the African animals. And so when I moved to Australia, I naturally wanted to continue being around nature. And the one thing I have discovered about Australia is the fact that wildlife cohabitates and coexists with the humans. We have kangaroo hopping around 500 meters from us on the farms nearby. We have all sorts of animals being around. I've got a bandicoot in my garden. He comes and goes. We visit I've got a little forest nearby. We walk there every day. We see some amazing creatures there as well. So today we are just going to be learning about one particular type of animal. but there are so many of them. But let's first learn about Get Set Up. It helps us to learn useful skills from people, and it's also a time to communicate with others and chat with each other. You can also request a recording after the class. We are live streaming today, so the people who are listening on live stream, the best way to participate is to join us in class so that you can also take part. If I mention any products, which on this particular one I don't, it's only because I use them or I have them. We don't promote anything. A little bit about myself. I live in Perth, Australia. I'm an educator for 44 years. I'm still educating now with young children. And I enjoy creating and making things, including puzzles. I also have such a passion for animals. And I enjoy being a Get Set Up guide. So we're going to learn from the cute and cuddly to the large and somewhat scary at times. Today's animals go from the koala to the platypus. Now, all the animals we're learning about today are marsupials. A marsupial is an animal that raises its baby in a pouch. So the baby is born and it's the size of a jelly bean when it's born. And that then moves up and into the pouch, and there it lives for a few months until it's ready to come out of the pouch and be part of the animal race. And the pouch is always at the front or the underside of the body. Now, the first one we're going to talk about is the beautiful little koala bear. The koalas are really cute little creatures. They live very happily in the trees of the eucalyptus trees in the East Coast. We don't see them naturally on the West Coast where I live. There are some, but they are within little reserves of their own. We get two types of koala. We get the brown koala, which is up in the northern part, and the grey koala, which is down on the southern part of the East Coast. They love to be touched, but not in the front. If you touch them over the face, they will scratch you, and they've got sharp claws. But if you touch them down the back, that's where they enjoy them the most. And so you've got a beautiful little koala families. They're usually together in trees. They're not really that sociable, but they do live in sort of close proximity. One very interesting thing about a koala is that they don't drink water. They get all the liquid they need out of the eucalyptus leaves. The only problem with that is the babies cannot eat eucalyptus leaves. They are poisonous for them. So they have to rely entirely on mother's milk for the first 6 months. And then they can start to eat. Because if they try and eat too early, they really cannot handle it. Koalas sleep for a very long time because eucalyptus leaves take a long time to digest in their stomach. And so because of the length of time that takes, they sleep for about 20 hours a day, and they are, for the rest of the day, they are able to eat and interact with each other. As you can see, I've put a little map for each animal just so that you get an idea of where the animals are. The next animal is the kangaroo. We see
Sue,
the
Sue, I
yes,
have a question.
yes. Any
Could you give
questions?
us, could you give us a sense of the size of each animal as you talk about it?
Yes, certainly I can. A koala is about between 30 and 40 centimeters. He's not a
Oh,
particularly big animal. He's a size of a ruler plus, so probably about that much longer than a ruler. They aren't
oh,
big. They're not very big animals at all. They are quite small in size and stature. Very good question, Anne. Thank you. Please, people, just ask questions at any time. I sometimes get carried away and forget to ask any questions. Any questions about the koala before I go on? No? Okay, right. The kangaroo are found all over Australia. Different types belong in different places. We have the Western grey kangaroo on our side, and they are quite amazing. Two of the pictures here are pictures I've personally taken. The one in the center is a female kangaroo. They are much smaller than the male. So the baby kangaroo and female are quite small in comparison to the male. They stand up to sort of waist height of us if they are down. And then when they stand up, they would probably, I'm about 5'3". So they would probably, if they're standing up with their ears included, they'd maybe come up to my shoulders or a little less. They're not very big at all. While a male kangaroo is enormous. That male in the bottom right-hand corner, he terrified me. He was living amongst the houses in the area, and he was standing on his feet, and you can see how big he is compared to the cars behind. When he stands up high, he's well over 2 meters tall. So he is a really big, big creature. Where they call them a big boy or a boomer. They certainly are big. They're very happy to live amongst the people. If they feel uncomfortable, they just move out of the way. So they'll move a little bit to this side or that side, and move into the bush. They love to eat the green grass. So wherever there's any green grass, you'll find kangaroo. When we first came here, we couldn't see kangaroo anywhere. We were quite disappointed. Then we went down further south and we saw amazing kangaroo. And since then, we've seen nothing but kangaroo. They even are in a big piece of green grass just outside the hospital near us. So people who are recuperating can look from their windows and watch the kangaroo while they are busy grazing. So that's really nice that humans and animals can coexist so well in Australia. It's really great. The female kangaroo is called a Jill, and people say there are more kangaroo than humans in Australia, and that could quite likely be true. They live for an average of 6 years in the wild, but up to 20 years in captivity. The gestation period is the same with most marsupials of 30 to 36 days. There's only one that has a very, very short one, and we'll get to that one soon. Now, the jumping power of a male, particularly kangaroo, is amazing. The kangaroo can jump 9 meters in a single bound. That is bigger than your highway. So they can literally leap over half the highway and be on the other side of the highway and gone in seconds. They also travel at about 56 kilometers an hour. So that is pretty fast. And the tail is what helps them. It pushes them to jump. Their big hind legs and their tail really send them into orbit, and they can jump away very, very quickly. They're quite inquisitive animals, but very gentle. So it's lovely to have them around. Any questions?
Yes, I'd like to know.
Oh, hi, Naomi.
Hi there.
Hi, lovely to see you.
Again, yes, thank
Again,
you.
yes.
Thank you. I'd like to know, why is it that their life span is so much shorter in the wild?
Because they do unfortunately get knocked over by cars, but also dingoes. There are predatory animals that eat them, so they aren't protected. So anything, the small ones can be eaten by hawks or eagles. The older ones can get knocked off by cars. Also, unfortunately, we have fires. We have bushfires, and
Yeah.
even though they can move quite fast, the bushfires move just as fast. The bushfires
Okay.
are scary here. I have
Yeah.
twice already been warned to take whatever I can and leave my home.
Oh my.
So you've got a choice. You can either stay and watch or go. The last time all my neighbors left, we decided to stay, and the wind then changed and went in a different direction, and so our homes were all safe, and so we didn't have to pack up the dogs because we've got two little dogs and move out. So it was but yeah, it is a very serious thing in Australia.
Yeah, we
And
saw those on the news. We
mm,
saw those fires last year.
last year they was on the east coast, and this past year they've been on our west coast. We've had
Mhm.
a lot this time round. The east coast was sort of saved this time, and we got it.
Oh yeah.
Now the east coast has got flooding. I'm hoping we're not going to get flooding next year,
Oh,
because it seems to be having a lot of fun. Right.
another teacher from Get Set is on the east, and she's in Australia, and she
Mhm.
was telling us about the floods.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, there are big floods particularly in Sydney. There are very serious floods. The
serious.
water is up to the top of the roofs of some of the houses. That's
Oh
how big it
my.
is. Yeah, it is a it's a 1 in 100 year flood that is happening
Oh,
at the moment. So
oh.
it is very serious. Yeah.
We pray for you all.
Yeah, we're okay on the West Coast, but we really feel for our friends on the East Coast.
Is that
And
Absolutely.
predictable? Is that flood literally every 100 years?
no, they've just called it the 1 in 100 year flood. I think the last time there was a big one was 100 years. So
Oh,
it's rare. They have minor flooding, but nothing like this. They
up to
are
the rooftop.
they're
Oh my
out in
God.
boats fishing people off the top of roofs at the moment. So
Oh,
it's really that serious.
that's bad. Yeah.
Mm.
Sue, is there a hunting season for any of the animals that you're going to talk about tonight?
No, 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 they don't have hunting seasons. Not that I'm
Do,
aware of at all.
do they hunt dingoes, for example, or?
No, they try and put up fences to sort of keep the dingoes in an area, but the dingoes just roam everywhere.
Okay.
They do try and capture and relocate if they can, but the dingoes, they are the predator of the animals that are here, and we do need them to also be kept within their correct range. So
Okay.
we don't want to undo the ecosystem. In my second talk on more Australian animals, we talk about the dingo. That
Mhm.
is discussed quite seriously
Mhm.
in that
But
lesson.
there's
Yes,
hunting is just not a sport in
no,
Australia.
no, it's not a
I
sport in
asked
Australia.
when your second class was, and the lady didn't know. When is your second class?
I will, when I stop sharing, Paula, I'll have a look and see when it is.
Okay.
If you just as soon as I've stopped sharing, I can go into my chart and see. I'll be able to tell you. Okay.
I
Um,
took it a couple of weeks ago and it was really fun.
Thank you, Anne. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I enjoy seeing, I've got a couple of people who come back, and it's really great
Yeah,
to be able to see you all again.
because you're so delightful.
Oh, thank you. It makes my day.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Now, this is a tree kangaroo. Doesn't look anything like the other. Well, he kind of does, but not really.
Not
He
really. Mm-mm.
No, not really. He's an endearing little animal. He's much smaller. There are 14 species of tree kangaroo. There are two particular ones that are found only in Queensland, up in the top northern eastern corner. There are not a lot of them around at all. You can see their size by the size that they are on the branches. They're sort of like the size of a large monkey. Um, but because there's increased hunting, loss of habitat and hunting of them, this was something that happened not recently, but in the past. People wanted the fur. They liked the fur of this kangaroo, but it doesn't happen anymore. But they've lost their habitat. That is the biggest one. And so they live in the rainforests up in the top corner of Queensland, and they eat leaves, fruit, and bark, and young birds, flowers. So they're omnivorous, and they live for about 15 to 20 years. But their numbers are increasing, but what's holding back the increase is the size of their habitat, because they're animals are very clever. If there isn't enough food, they don't breed. There's just an instinct in them. And so people are now far more aware of the tree kangaroo than they used to be. And this is the wallaby. The wallaby we usually associate with New Zealand because they've got the wallaby teams and things, but we still also have wallabies. They're a marsupial as well. They're about 30 different species of wallaby. They are much smaller than a kangaroo, and they range from the size of a rabbit to almost 2 meters from head to end of tail at the biggest. They've got a very soft woolly fur. It's very different to the kangaroo fur. And you can get gray ones, brown ones, red ones. And it comes from the Aboriginal name. And in most of the Aboriginal stories, they talk about them. They're not very sociable. They prefer remote places. They're not like the kangaroo who live amongst the people in the suburbs. So they live in small forests, and they're herbivores. So a lot of the marsupials are herbivores as well, and they live from 11 to 14 years in the wild. Any questions?
Yes, so are any of these animals used as pets?
No, they're all wild. Nobody keeps them as a pet. They live alongside the humans, but not as pets, no. Nobody keeps them as a pet. They are free. In fact, if you do try, as far as I know, in West Australia, you actually will be fined or jailed for either trying to keep them in captivity, unless they are in being rehabilitated. There are a number of people. My son's girlfriend, her best friend has a little mini rehabilitation center where she's got a lot of kangaroo that are busy being rehabilitated, where they've either been abandoned or something happened to their moms, and then they are brought up until they are ready to go back into the wild.
Okay, that's so cute.
And then they are reintegrated. These animals are all really, really beautiful animals. Now, my favorite, or second favorite, I don't know. This is the quokka. The quokka is only found in Perth, Australia. It's not found anywhere else in the world. And they've got this face that smiles at you all the time. And they're very friendly little animals. They really are the most friendly animals. They don't mind having a photograph taken with them. They'll stand right next to you. They'll sniff your feet. They really do not worry. If they feel that they're threatened, they'll move off. They live on Rottnest Island, which is just off the coast. There are some on the mainland, but Rottnest Island is where all the children go on camp. And they have such fun with these quokkas. The quokkas are in and out. But the nice thing is that quokkas are herbivores. So they don't go raid the rooms for the food that the children have snuck across for camp. They're not interested in that. And so they are able to, they run in amongst the children. They're all over the place. And a lot of celebrities love to go there and have their photograph taken with a quokka. So quokkas are, as you can see, the little baby's peeping out from his pouch in mum's little pouch that she's got there. And that's a very common picture, to see a little baby peeping out like that.
So cool.
They belong to the same family as the kangaroo, because you can see by the back legs how strong they are, and the little front legs. And they live for about 10 years. So they live very happy little lives, the little quokka. I just think the smiley face that they have is something that you don't find anywhere else in the world. Right now, another one of my favorites, I don't unfortunately have it here in the West, and this is a wombat. He is the size of a large dog, or the medium to large dog, as you can see by the man holding a fully grown wombat. Wombats live underground, so the baby has a problem. If mum is busy scratching, she's sending sand into her pouch. So she's got the solution. Her pouch faces backwards. So baby looks out the back door instead of out the front door. And so the baby is able to see, and I think it must be a bit uncomfortable if mom sits down, because then baby's facing downwards. And the moms waddle. They waddle when they move. They don't walk they walk almost like a penguin, even though they've got 4 legs. And they can go quite fast. They can go up to 25 miles an hour for about a minute and a half, and then they're tired and stop. They live for 5 years in the wild and 30 years in captivity, purely because of the ravages of whatever's around that would attack them or eat them, because they're such cute little animals, but not able to move too fast. The baby wombat is ugly. He has no fur, and he really doesn't look very nice. He's like a swan. The cygnets don't look very good, but when they grow up, wow, they are beautiful, beautiful creatures. All babies of the marsupials are called joeys. Right, any questions? None at the moment? Great, let's move on. Now, here's my personal little animal. The top left-hand corner is my personal Bandicoot. She comes every day, sometimes twice a day, to help herself to the dog food. And my dogs have got quite used to her. If they are out in the front garden, the one will kind of attempt to chase her. The other one will just lie and watch her eating the food. We know it's a girl because we've seen her pouch. And one of the interesting things about a Bandicoot is they have the shortest gestation period of any mammal in the world, and that is 12 days, only 12 days. Then the baby is born into the pouch, and there it stays. There are many different types of Bandicoot. The bilby is the one with the very long ears that is often featured for Easter, because it's got ears like a rabbit, and it's got a most interesting tail. It's got like a sort of scaly piece in the middle. Baby Bandicoots are tiny, even when they have got their fur and are ready to move around, as can be seen by the hand. Our little one, standing on its hind legs, is about that height. It's small. The other lovely thing in Australia is at the top of my road, that is the sign at the top of my road. Caution, bandicoots crossing. Now, if a bandicoot is crossing, you stop your car and you wait for the bandicoot. The bandicoot crosses, then you continue. We also see signs that say ducks crossing. We see signs that say kangaroo crossing. We see signs of a lot of different animals. And where they cross the road, these signs are put up to warn motorists to be careful, because wildlife have the right of way. And a bandicoot is an omnivorous animal. So he will eat moths and ants and insects as well as vegetation that he finds around. We have the brown bandicoot. The one on the top right-hand corner is the banded bandicoot. And so there are many, as I say, 20 different types. The little Joey stays in the pocket for 8 to 10 weeks and is fully grown in 5 months because they've got a very short life of only 3 years. So they need to very quickly be able to have new families. Any questions? Huh? Right. The most dangerous of all the marsupials is this one. He is the Tasmanian Devil. I would not like to meet him at night. First of all, he's black, so you can't see him, and all you can see is 2 white stripes coming towards you and 2 fangs hanging down that would shine in the moonlight. Not my idea of fun. The Tasmanian Devils are found on the island of Tasmania and a little bit on the coast of Australia, but they have nearly all died out. There might be 1 or 2 left. They are now basically in Tasmania. So I would be very dubious about going out at night if I knew that there were Tasmanian devils around. It's the world's largest carnivorous marsupial. They're very feisty. They'll fight for food. They'll fight for territory. They'll fight for family. They'll fight you just because they want to fight with you because they're in a bad mood. So I would be very happy to keep them at a distance. They live for 5 to 6 years in the wild and about 8 years in captivity, and they are the size of a fairly large dog. So the mom gives birth after 3 weeks of pregnancy. That's your 30 to 36 days, and then they have to stay in. The interesting thing is, mom gives birth to about 30 little babies, but she's only got 4 nipples. So right from the start, they have to fight for life. And only probably 4 to 6 or even maybe 8 will survive. The rest will never get to a nipple and they will die. So right from the start, they are feisty. They've got to fight to get their food from the very beginning. And so only a very few of her babies survive. I'm not quite sure why they give birth to so many when only so few will survive. Now, this little creature, you have something similar in America. You have the opossum. We have the possum. The one in the top center looks a lot like your opossum, but most of ours are small. And this little one that looks a bit like a bilby is actually a possum as well. I thought I had the wrong picture, but it's not. It is a little possum as well. And you've got beautiful banded ones, green tail ones. The little honey one is about that size. I thought it was a small mouse at the top of my flower, but it wasn't. It was the little honey possum. And he's really small, and he hardly pushes in the fronds of the flower or the centerpiece of the flower as he sucks away at the honey. We have a lot of honey birds, so a lot of our indigenous flowers have these tops to them for the honey birds, and because of that, we are then able to do it. Possums live in hollows of trees, and some of them also will make a dray in a bush. They mainly eat eucalyptus and other leaves. They also eat nectar, flowers, and fruit. The ones that live on our side, on the west, they don't eat eucalyptus. We don't have many eucalyptus trees, and so they live on the honey and things like that. The little pygmy pink one is too sweet. He's also very small, but very, very cute. And they even look a little bit like a squirrel, but the tail isn't right with those stripes on them. Any questions?
Sue,
Mm.
I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina,
Mhm.
and I never knew that our possums were called opossums. We always called them possums. So this is something new that I'm learning tonight.
Oh, wow. Yes, because when I did all my research, they said the Americans have the opossum and we have the possum. I'm pretty sure they're the same family. But, so
Yeah.
now you've got a lot of our possums are found on the East Coast, and you hear them climbing up on the roof and running backwards and forwards, which I'm sure you have as well.
Yes.
Um, mm.
But
are they? Yeah, so now I wonder you've learned something different.
yes, yes. And we always call them possums, never opossums. I never
Never.
knew there was a difference.
Wow. Well, so that is, I'm so glad you've learned something different tonight.
Yes, very important.
Yeah, it is. Now, if somebody talks about an opossum, you don't go, a what?
Yes, exactly.
You will know that it is a possum. And yes, I'm pretty sure if we had to look at them very carefully, they are very, very similar. And if you didn't know which was which, you wouldn't be able to say, oh, that one comes from America and this one comes from Australia.
Exactly.
I think they are all the same.
I wonder
Any
why they're called different names like that.
I have no idea why they would do that. Maybe just to oh, that's actually a very good question, and I can't answer it. I really don't know. But yeah, that was the thing. All the research that I did on Australia kept talking about the opossum of America and how it's different. It's the same family, but different. So, okay, I thought, all right, because the picture in the center to me was exactly the same picture for the opossum and the possum. So
Exactly.
I
Mhm.
looked at this and I thought, no, I've got the wrong picture. And I went back and I went back 2 or 3 times, and every time it was the right picture.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite an amazing thing. Do all of you have possums? Are they throughout America?
Pennsylvania
Yes.
has them.
We have them in Kansas.
Okay, so they're pretty widespread all over the place.
50
Interesting.
years ago, go ahead. 50 years ago, when you
Mhm.
saw, nobody said opossum, even 50 years ago. But when you saw the word in print, there was an apostrophe before the P to indicate that the O had been dropped, like a contraction sort of. So it was
Oh,
apostrophe
right.
POSSUM. And now you don't see that at all. It's just possum.
It's just a possum. They're all possums now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent. Possums are possums are possum. I love the little one in the middle on the right-hand side. It looks like a mixture between a bear and a whole lot of things that I could happily have as a pet, because to
Yes.
me it is just too cute and too lovely.
The one
In
on
a,
the bottom right looks like a chipmunk.
it does look
Which-
like a chipmunk, indeed. It's called the striped something possum.
So do you have chipmunks?
No,
Oh,
we don't have chipmunks at all. No
Oh.
chipmunks here at all. In Africa, we have a little animal, also very tiny, called a nachapi, and it's that sort of size. And when my dad was young, he had one that was his pet, and he had it in the classroom with him in his pocket. It just traveled everywhere because it was so small. It just lived in his pocket, and he was in boarding school, and he had his nachapi that was his little baby. If you translate nachapi, it is a night ape. But it's a tiny, tiny little thing. It's too sweet. That's part of my African animals. Now we're getting on to an animal that isn't, but is a marsupial. It is part of the same kind of family as the marsupial, There are only two of these types of creatures in the world, and they're both found in Australia. And that is a mammal that lays eggs. Now, the mammal lays these eggs, and then when they open, then she takes it and she looks after it. She doesn't have a pouch, but she curls herself around the baby, and so until it grows to the size that it is able to fend for itself, because when it's born, it is so tiny. So it is, she keeps it, she stays where she is and looks after it and nurses it. She gives it milk, she looks after it and keeps it warm. The echidna is the other animal that also has an egg, but it lays its egg in a kind of pouch in the front of its body. And so when the egg opens, it's already in the pouch. But both these creatures come from the dinosaur age. They come from way, way, way back. And in fact, when the platypus was first seen, people thought it was a hoax, and somebody had joined pieces of animal together to make this
I
very
need to leave a
weird
message
creature.
for Liz, and she is a case manager, and I don't know her last name.
Paula, can you just quickly mute, please? I can mute you. Okay, that's fine. I can mute her. Right. Now, we've got the interesting thing about the platypus is that it's got this beautiful leathery beak like a duck. It's actually called a duck-billed platypus. Then its body is fur. It's not scales and it's not feathers. It's fur. And it's got a tail like a beaver. Now, its feet are the most interesting part of it. When it is swimming, it has a web-like structure that sticks out over the claws, and it's able to swim through the water. But when it walks on the land, if it walks on those webs, they get shredded. So what it does is it retracts them, the web, into the center of the foot, and it walks on the claws. And so it's able to happily walk along on its claws. When it wants to swim again, it releases the web again, and it's able to swim. So it's got almost like a double use of its feet. It also, the male, has poison. He is venomous. He's got one nail at the back that if that scratches you, that will then be your problem, and that is poisonous. So you have to be careful of him and his poison. But you don't see them very often. They're very, very shy creatures. They live only in a small area of the world, which is a little bit of Australia. It looks quite big there, but it's much smaller than, there's so few that you can hardly see them. They live in the freshwater areas that flow through the island of Tasmania and in the eastern and southeastern coast of Australia. They are carnivorous, which means that they eat meat, not plants. So they will eat a lot of fish, just like a duck. They would eat any other creature that's floating around in the water as well. They belong to the forefathers of the marsupials, called the monotreme. And she lays 2 eggs. She puts them between her rump and her tail and keeps them warm. After 10 days, the eggs hatch, and the little bean size, this size, will be looked after for 4 months by the mom. She will look after that little bean until it grows into what the right size to be able to be used. Oh, not used, able to live by itself, not used. Any questions? Anne, can you unmute yourself?
How big are they?
A platypus is quite long. I'll actually find out the exact measurements for you, and maybe if you come into any of my other classes, I'll be able to tell you. Just remind me. I'll look up straight after this, and I'll make a note of it. I have seen one in the zoo. He's probably a meter and a bit. The one that
So
I
bigger
saw
than
in
a
the zoo.
beaver.
Yes,
Bigger
bigger
than a
than a bee.
beaver.
I've only ever seen one in a zoo. But I have not seen them anywhere else. So yes, they're bigger than a beaver. Any other questions about them? Right. Now, in our second talk on the series, I have got some lovely animals to talk about. Going around the edges, at the top center, we've got the fairy penguin. For me, the most beautiful little animal in the world. They are so tiny and so beautiful. They're blue in color. I'm used to the black and white penguin in Africa, so this little blue penguin is amazing. We'll talk about the echidna, the other animal like the platypus that is a mammal but lays eggs. We'll talk about the thorny devil who lives in the desert. He's a very interesting lizard. We'll talk about the dingo, the crocodile, and the cassowary, which is the most dangerous bird in the world. Not because of its beak, but because of its feet. He also comes from the dinosaur era with this big piece of bone that grows out of the top of his head. But those are not the only animals that we will talk about. There are some really amazing animals to discuss. Oopsie. Where do I go from here? Come on. There we go. If you have anything you'd like to add or would like to have as further classes, please tell us in the feedback so that I can continue to grow my series on animals. I hope to be able to, we've got more wildlife animals from Australia, and then we've got 2 in the series of wildlife animals of Africa. If you would like to get a recording of this, you can get it at help@getsetup.io, and I will send you an email afterwards, which has a link to that survey that you can fill in any information you would like to fill in. I'm going to stop sharing now. And somebody was asking about when my more Australian animals are. Let me see if I'm sure there's one more this in the series before April. Let me just check for you. While we're going, yeah, more Australian on the 1st. On the 1st of what's that month? April. First of April. I'm just seeing if there's another one before that. There might still be one more before that. It's just going back to that. Yeah, there we go. No, there isn't one. The 1st of April is when it'll be. It's
Great.
the 1st of April.
I see one scheduled for the 31st.
Oh yeah, you see it as the 31st, which is quite correct. For me, I'm already into the 1st.
Oh, okay.
You are a day behind me. So for me, I see it as the 1st. For you, you see it as the 31st. Yes, you're quite right. Thanks for pointing that out. I forgot about that. So that makes it different. All right. Anybody got any questions? Anybody want to know anything before we decide to close for today? Well, thank you very much for all being with me. I hope you learned some things.
I did.
That's awesome. And let's hope that I can see you in my other animal series as well.
Yes, I'll be there.
Thanks, Sue.
Excellent. I see some of you already that I also see in my creating from waste classes and my upcycling classes. So it's lovely to see you all again. Have a lovely evening. Sleep well.
Okay.
Bye for now.
Bye.